No one went to the millionaire's paralyzed son's party, even though everything was planned down to the millimeter to look perfect. Amid golden balloons and untouched tables, the silence reveals the weight of the prejudice that kept all his classmates away. But when hope seemed lost, a poor girl says, "Can I join?" with eyes full of courage and tenderness. And with that simple gesture, she turns loneliness into laughter, and that boy's pain into something he hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. From behind the majestic windows of his Beacon Hill mansion, William Thornton observed the meticulous preparations taking place in his garden. The staff moved with surgical precision, arranging golden balloons in perfect symmetry against the backdrop of carefully trimmed hedges. The award-winning pastry chef was putting final touches on a superhero-themed cake that had cost more than most people's monthly rent. Musicians and entertainers rehearsed their performances amid antique china that William only allowed to be used on exceptional occasions. Today was supposed to be special, Ethan's first birthday celebration since the accident. William straightened his Italian silk tie and took a deep breath. For months he had been planning this party, desperate to bring some normalcy, or at least the illusion of joy, back into his son's life. Since losing Catherine and watching his son confined to a wheelchair, William had thrown himself into creating perfect moments, as if perfection could somehow compensate for what they had lost. "Mr. Thornton, the decorators are asking about the seating arrangement for the children." Mrs. Collins, the household manager, stood at the doorway, her clipboard clutched tightly against her chest. 28 place settings, as we discussed. One for each of Ethan's classmates, William replied, his voice betraying no emotion. He had personally called each parent, sent handwritten invitations, and followed up with the school's parent association. Everything was flawless. It had to be. Mrs. Collins hesitated. "Sir, I just received another cancellation. That's 15 now." William's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "They're just running late. Boston traffic can be unpredictable." He turned back to the window, refusing to acknowledge what they both knew. This wasn't about traffic. This was about the discomfort, ignorance, and veiled prejudice that had surrounded Ethan since he'd returned to school in a wheelchair. Not malice exactly, but something almost worse. Pity mixed with fear, as if disability were somehow contagious. William checked his watch. An heirloom passed down through 4 generations of Thorntons, pharmaceutical pioneers who had built one of the largest medical empires in America. The party was scheduled to start in 20 minutes. Ethan was still in his room with Lisa, his caregiver. "Is my son ready?" William asked, his voice softening slightly. "Lisa said he's choosing which superhero t-shirt to wear, the blue one or the red one." William nodded and headed toward the east wing of the mansion. As he walked down the corridor lined with Renaissance art and family photographs, he paused at the newest addition, a photograph of Catherine holding a newborn Ethan. Her smile had always lit up every room. The pharmaceutical giant felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He found Ethan sitting by his bedroom window, already dressed in the blue superhero shirt, his wheelchair positioned to face the street. Lisa was arranging his collection of action figures on the shelf nearby. "Hey buddy, ready for your big day?" William said, crouching down to meet his son's eye level, something his executive coach had suggested might help with connection. Ethan nodded silently, his eyes fixed on the empty street below. At 8 years old, he spoke less than he had at 5. The therapists had different theories about this: trauma, adjustment, depression. William had consulted the best specialists in the country, but none of their expert opinions had brought back his son's laughter. "Everyone's going to be here soon," William said, with forced enthusiasm. "The magician you liked from that YouTube video? I flew him in from California." Ethan's eyes brightened momentarily before returning to their vacant stare. William recognized that look. His son knew. Somehow children always knew when adults were constructing elaborate fictions around them. "The cake looks amazing," William continued. "Superhero theme, just like you wanted." "Dad," Ethan said quietly, still looking out the window, "if nobody comes, can we still have cake?" William felt something crack inside him. "Of course we can, buddy, but they'll come. They're just running late." Downstairs, Mrs. Collins was fielding another apologetic phone call, another parent with another transparent excuse. As the first hour of the party passed with an empty garden, William maintained the facade. He instructed the musicians to play. The the magician to prepare, the caterers to stand ready. Ethan sat in his wheelchair beneath the canopy of golden balloons, watching the elaborate show performed for an audience of one. Lisa tried valiantly to keep the atmosphere light, clapping enthusiastically at the magic tricks and bringing plate after plate of untouched party food. William paced by the entrance, checking his phone every few minutes, firing off text messages to parents who no longer responded. By the second hour, the pretense was becoming unsustainable. The musicians played quieter melodies, the entertainers began packing their props, and William's shoulders sagged under the weight of this latest failure. What pained him most was Ethan's resigned acceptance. No tears, no tantrums, just quiet observation, as if he'd expected this all along. Just as William was about to admit defeat and end the charade, there was movement at the garden gate. Mrs. Collins approached, looking puzzled. "Sir, there's a young girl at the gate. She's not on the guest list." William frowned. "A girl? Alone? She says she was passing by and saw the balloons. She's asking if she can join the party." William hesitated. His first instinct was to send her away. This perfectly orchestrated event, even in its failure, was a private affair. But something made him glance at Ethan, still sitting alone among the elaborate decorations. "Show her in," he said against his better judgment. When Lily Martinez stepped into the garden, she didn't match anything in this curated world. Her sneakers were worn but clean, her jeans had been patched at the knees, and she carried a small paper bag from a local bakery. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, with bright eyes and a shy smile that somehow commanded the entire space. "Hi," she said, approaching William with unexpected confidence. "I'm Lily. I was taking fresh bread home to my grandmother when I saw your balloons over the wall. They're really pretty." Before William could respond, Ethan wheeled himself forward, moving faster than William had seen him move in months. "I'm Ethan," he said, his voice clear and strong. "It's my birthday." William stood frozen, hearing his son speak a complete sentence to a stranger, something that weeks of therapy sessions hadn't accomplished. Lily looked at Ethan, then at his wheelchair, then back at his face. There was no pity in her expression, no awkwardness or forced cheerfulness, just genuine interest. "Cool shirt," she said, pointing to his superhero logo. "Is that cake for everyone? It looks amazing." "It is," William found himself saying, "and you're just in time. We were about to cut it." As Lily stepped further into the garden, something in the atmosphere shifted. The silence that had hung heavy over the party lifted, replaced by something lighter: possibility. "I brought something too," Lily said, reaching into her paper bag. She pulled out a small loaf of sweet bread. "My grandmother says no one should go to a party empty-handed. It's not fancy, but it's still warm from the oven." William watched as Ethan's face transformed with a smile he hadn't seen since before the accident. For the first time in a very long time, William felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. What had begun as a silent garden filled with untouched party favors transformed within minutes of Lily's arrival. The cold mansion echoed with something it hadn't heard in months: children's laughter. "Your wheelchair is so cool," Lily said, examining the sleek carbon fiber frame. "It's like a command center." Ethan looked at his chair with new eyes. "Command center?" "Yeah, like for space missions," Lily continued, her imagination flowing freely. "Those wheels could definitely handle moon terrain." William watched from a distance as the two children moved through the garden, Ethan leading Lily on what had suddenly become an expedition. The wheelchair, once a symbol of limitation and loss, was reimagined as something powerful, a vessel for adventure rather than a mark of difference. "This could be the navigation system," Lily said, pointing to the control pad. "And we could add buttons here for the laser shields." "Laser shields?" Ethan's eyes widened with delight. "Of course, every space commander needs protection from meteor showers." Mrs. Collins approached William, her clipboard forgotten in the unexpected turn of events. "Sir, should I tell the staff to stay longer? They were starting to pack up, but—" "Tell them to stay," William said quietly, not taking his eyes off his son, "and bring out more cake." As the afternoon progressed, the elaborate party designed for 28 children found its purpose in entertaining just 2. The magician performed his grandest illusions, with Lily gasping at all the right moments, and Ethan laughing so hard he had to catch his breath. They ate cake with their hands when Ethan struggled with the fork, smearing frosting and trading superhero figurines as if they'd been friends their entire lives. William found himself sitting on the grass, Italian suit and all, joining their impromptu picnic. It had been years since he'd abandoned formality, years since he'd felt anything resembling joy. "My grandmother makes cakes too," Lily told them, accepting a second slice. "Not as fancy as this, but she sings while she bakes, in Portuguese and English. She says desserts taste better when they're made with music." "Portuguese?" William asked, surprised. "My grandpa was from Brazil and my grandma's from Puerto Rico. Mom says I'm a real American mix, half Latino, quarter Irish from her side." Ethan looked fascinated. "Can you speak Portuguese?" "Just a little. Grandma's teaching me." Lily demonstrated by counting to 10 in Portuguese, making Ethan giggle at the unfamiliar sounds. As the golden afternoon light began to fade, William noticed something he hadn't seen in over a year. Ethan had completely forgotten to be sad. The boy who had spent months shrinking from the world was now animatedly describing his collection of space books to his new friend. "You should see our library," he was saying. "Dad has books about real astronauts who went to the moon." "You have a whole library in your house?" Lily's eyes widened. "Want to see it?" Ethan asked, already turning his wheelchair toward the house. William watched them go, Lily walking alongside the wheelchair, not behind or ahead, but right beside Ethan. They moved as equals, neither defined by what they had or lacked. Lisa approached smiling as she gathered abandoned plates. "I haven't seen him like this since before," she stopped herself, "in a long time." "Who is this girl?" William wondered aloud. "Just appearing out of nowhere like this?" "Sometimes the universe sends exactly what we need," Lisa replied, with the wisdom of someone who had seen many families navigate tragedy, "even if it's not what we thought we were looking for." Inside the mansion, Lily marveled at the library with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and rolling ladders. Ethan guided his wheelchair with newfound confidence, showing off his favorite astronomy section. "This one shows all the planets," he explained, as William quietly entered the room. "Dad got it signed by a real NASA scientist." Lily carefully turned the pages. "My school doesn't have books this nice. Our library is just one small room." "Which school do you attend?" William asked. "Riverside Elementary," Lily answered. "It's about 20 blocks from here in East Boston." William knew the neighborhood, working-class families, small apartments, a world away from Beacon Hills mansions. It was the kind of community his company's executives drove past without a second glance. "It's getting late," William said gently. "Do your parents know where you are, Lily?" A flash of concern crossed her face. "Oh, Grandma will be wondering. I was just supposed to get bread from Mr. Romano's bakery." She looked down at her empty hands. "I forgot the bread." William smiled. "I think we can help with that. Mrs. Collins can drive you home with plenty of bread and some cake for your grandmother too." Ethan's face fell. "Does she have to go?" "I have to help Grandma with dinner," Lily explained. "She can't stand for too long anymore. But maybe I can come back if that's okay." She looked uncertainly at William. Before William could answer, Ethan spoke up. "Dad, can Lily come back tomorrow? Please. We didn't finish our space mission." William saw the hope in his son's eyes, a light he'd thought extinguished forever. "Of course she can. In fact," he reached for his wallet. "Let me give you my card, Lily. It has our address and phone number. If your parents approve, you're welcome any time." As they walked Lily to the car, loaded with bakery bread purchased by a quick-thinking Mrs. Collins and containers of birthday cake, Ethan held Lily's hand from his wheelchair. "Tomorrow we can add the jet boosters to the command center," he said earnestly. "Perfect. Every space commander needs jet boosters," Lily agreed, squeezing his hand. Before climbing into the car, she turned to William. "Thank you for letting me stay at your party, Mr. Thornton. It was the best party ever." As the car pulled away, Ethan looked up at his father. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me," he said simply. William placed his hand on his son's shoulder, feeling the small frame that carried such enormous grief, now momentarily lightened. "I think you might be right, buddy." That night, for the first time since the accident, Ethan asked for a bedtime story. William sat beside the bed, reading about brave astronauts and distant planets, watching his son drift to sleep with a small smile still on his lips. After Ethan was asleep, William stood at the window of his study, looking out at the Boston skyline. The city lights blurred as unexpected tears filled his eyes. He thought of Catherine, of how she would have loved Lily's unfiltered kindness. He thought of all the elaborate remedies he'd sought for their broken hearts. Specialists, therapies, perfectly orchestrated parties, all outshined by a chance encounter with a girl carrying bakery bread. His phone buzzed with notifications from Thornton Pharmaceuticals, urgent messages about tomorrow's board meeting, projected forecasts, competitor analyses. The corporate machine never stopped, not even for healing hearts. William ignored them all and instead poured himself a rare glass of Catherine's favorite wine. "You would have handled this so much better than me," he whispered to the empty room. "You always knew what mattered." As midnight approached, William's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Answering cautiously, he heard an elderly woman's warm voice. "Mr. Thornton? This is Elena Martinez, Lily's grandmother. I hope it's not too late to call. Lily just told me about meeting your son today, and I wanted to make sure it was all right that she visited. She can be quite spontaneous sometimes." William found himself smiling. "Mrs. Martinez, your granddaughter brought more joy into our home today than we've had in a very long time. She is welcome any time." "She has that effect on people," Elena said softly. "Even in our little apartment, she fills every corner with light." After hanging up, William made a decision. Tomorrow, after the board meeting, he would visit East Boston. He wanted to see the world that had produced a child like Lily. A world that, despite having so much less than his, seemed infinitely richer in the things that mattered most. The Thornton Pharmaceuticals boardroom hummed with tension. 12 executives in tailored suits sat around a mahogany table that had cost more than what most of their employees earned in a year. William sat at the head, half listening to the quarterly report being delivered by Lawrence Preston, the company's chief financial officer. "In conclusion," Preston said, adjusting his glasses, "while our mainstream medications continue to perform well, the Rare Disease Research Division is hemorrhaging resources without producing marketable results. The board recommends an immediate 40% reduction in funding, with complete reassessment in 6 months." William's attention snapped back. The Rare Disease Research Division had been Catherine's passion project, her legacy. Before the accident, she had led the division herself, determined to develop treatments for conditions that affected too few patients to be profitable. "That division isn't designed to be profitable yet," William said evenly. "As you all know, it was established with a 10-year development timeline." Preston cleared his throat. "With all due respect, William, that decision was made under different circumstances. The shareholders are concerned about our immediate growth trajectory." Different circumstances. A polite way of saying, when your wife was alive and you cared about more than the bottom line. William felt a familiar anger rising. "The division stays fully funded," he said flatly. "Next item." Glances were exchanged around the table. Richard Blackwood, the most senior board member, leaned forward. "William, we all respected Catherine's vision, but this isn't a charity. We have a responsibility to our shareholders. And to our patients," William countered. "Or have we forgotten that part of our mission statement?" The meeting continued with increasing friction. By the time it concluded, William had fended off the immediate threat to Catherine's division, but he knew it was temporary. The board was losing confidence in his leadership, viewing his personal loyalty to his late wife's projects as sentimentality rather than sound business. As the executives filed out, his assistant handed him a note. Ethan had been asking when Lily would arrive. Checking his watch, William realized he had just enough time to visit East Boston before heading home. The drive from the gleaming Thornton Pharmaceuticals Tower to East Boston was less than 5 miles, but it might as well have been a journey to another country. As William's driver navigated away from downtown's glass skyscrapers, the landscape transformed. Chain stores gave way to family-owned bodegas. Manicured parks became community gardens growing between buildings. Designer boutiques were replaced by discount stores, with signs in multiple languages. William directed his driver to the address Elena Martinez had provided. They pulled up in front of a modest 3-story apartment building with window boxes full of bright flowers. Children played on the sidewalk, their bicycles repaired with electrical tape. Neighbors called to each other across balconies, sharing news and laughter. "Wait here," William told his driver, straightening his tie as he approached the building. Apartment 3C was on the top floor. William climbed the stairs, noting how the building, though clearly aging, was meticulously maintained. Family photos lined the hallway walls. A bicycle was carefully chained beside a welcome mat, embroidered with blessings to all who enter. Before William could knock, the door opened to reveal Elena Martinez, a serene woman in her 70s, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes that matched Lily's in both color and directness. "Mr. Thornton," she said with a warm smile, "Lily said you might come. Please enter." The apartment was small but immaculate. The scent of fresh bread filled the air. Family photos and framed diplomas covered the walls. Through an open door, William glimpsed a tiny bedroom where a desk was covered with school books and crayon drawings. "Please sit," Elena gestured to a worn but clean sofa. "I'll make us some tea." "Thank you for welcoming me, Mrs. Martinez," William said, feeling strangely nervous, as if he were the one being evaluated. "I wanted to properly thank you for your granddaughter's kindness yesterday. She transformed what was becoming a very difficult day." Eleanor nodded, placing a tray with teacups on the coffee table. "Lily told me about the empty party. Children can be unintentionally cruel sometimes. I'm sorry your son experienced that. The other parents had concerns," William said carefully. "About his wheelchair," Eleanor stated plainly. "People fear what they don't understand. They worry their children will say the wrong thing, ask uncomfortable questions. So instead they avoid altogether, which is far worse." William was struck by her directness, so similar to Lily's. "Exactly, but Lily didn't seem to even notice the chair." "Oh, she noticed," Elena corrected him, pouring tea into delicate cups that looked like family heirlooms. "But Lily was raised to understand that a person's value lies in how they treat others, not in what they have or what challenges they face." As they sipped tea, Elena shared more about their family. Michael, Lily's father, worked double shifts in construction. Sarah, her mother, was a nurse at Boston General who had gone back to school at night to become a nurse practitioner. "We don't have much in material terms," Elena said without a trace of self-pity, "but we have dignity, faith, and each other. And, in the ways that truly matter, we are very rich." William thought about his mansion filled with priceless art and antiques, yet empty of laughter, until Lily had walked through the door. "May I ask about Lily's grandfather?" William inquired, noticing a prominently displayed photograph of a distinguished-looking man in academic robes. Elena's face softened with pride. Roberto was a brilliant man, a cardiologist who specialized in pediatric conditions. He came to the United States from Brazil with nothing but his medical knowledge and determination to help children whose families couldn't afford treatment. William leaned forward, genuinely interested. "Did he practice here in Boston?" "For many years at Community Health Center, but his real passion was research. He developed treatment protocols that used locally available medications to help children in countries without advanced healthcare systems." William felt a twinge of professional curiosity. "Did he publish his research?" "Extensively, but mostly in Spanish and Portuguese medical journals. He believed knowledge should be accessible to doctors everywhere, not just those who read English journals." A shadow crossed Eleanor's face. "The major pharmaceutical companies weren't interested in his work. No profit in helping the poor, they said." William winced, recognizing his own industry's callousness. The front door opened and Lily burst in, her backpack bouncing against her back. "Grandma, I got an A on my science." She stopped, eyes widening at the sight of William. "Mr. Thornton, did you come to take me to see Ethan?" "I wanted to thank your grandmother for letting you visit yesterday," William explained. "And yes, if it's all right, Ethan is hoping you might come over again." Lily looked at her grandmother, who nodded. "Homework first, then you may go." "I'll finish super fast," Lily promised, already pulling books from her backpack. While Lily worked at the kitchen table, Elena showed William more family photographs. One showed Roberto in a makeshift clinic, surrounded by children with beaming faces. "This was in his hometown in Brazil," Elena explained. "Every summer he would return to provide free care. He believed that healing wasn't just about medicine. It was about seeing patients as whole people, worthy of dignity regardless of their circumstances." When Lily finished her homework, Eleanor packed a container of homemade cookies. "A gift should never visit empty-handed," she reminded her granddaughter. As they prepared to leave, Eleanor took William's hand. "Mr. Thornton, I hope you don't find this presumptuous, but Roberto always said that sometimes the universe brings together exactly the right people at exactly the right time." Perhaps Ethan and Lily found each other for a reason. In the car ride back to Beacon Hill, William watched Lily press her face against the window, pointing out her school and favorite park. Her excitement was contagious, making even his stoic driver smile in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Thornton," Lily said suddenly, "does Ethan miss his mom a lot?" The question caught William off guard. "Yes, he does. We both do." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "My friend Marcus at school lost his dad last year. He was really sad for a long time, but now he can talk about his dad and smile sometimes." "That's good to hear," William said, unsure where the conversation was heading. "Ethan didn't talk about his mom yesterday," Lily continued, "but maybe someday he'll be able to smile when he remembers her too." William felt his throat tighten. "I hope so, Lily." When they arrived at the mansion, Ethan was waiting by the window. The moment the car pulled up, he wheeled himself to the front door faster than William had seen him move in months. "You came back!" Ethan exclaimed, as Lily bounded up the steps. "I brought cookies, and I had an idea about the jet boosters for your command center." William watched them race away, Ethan leading the way, showing off how quickly he could navigate the hallways in his wheelchair, Lily keeping pace beside him, their laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. Standing in his marble foyer, surrounded by wealth and privilege, William Thornton felt a strange sensation, as if he were the poor one who had just been given a precious gift. A clock chimed from the study, reminding him of pending conference calls and urgent emails. But for the first time in years, William ignored the corporate demands waiting in his office. Instead, he followed the sound of children's laughter, eager to see what adventures a makeshift Space Command Center might hold. 3 weeks passed, and a new rhythm developed in the Thornton mansion. Lily visited almost every day after school, bringing with her an energy that transformed the once somber home. Ethan's room gradually changed. Star charts replaced medical schedules on the walls, and his wheelchair now sported makeshift control panels fashioned from cardboard and aluminum foil, courtesy of Lily's boundless imagination. William found himself leaving the office earlier, eager to return home not to silence, but to the creative chaos the children generated. He'd commissioned an accessible treehouse in the garden, a project that would have seemed frivolous months ago, but now felt essential. "The board meeting is in 20 minutes, sir," his assistant reminded him as William gathered his documents. "The research division funding is the primary agenda item." William nodded, steeling himself for another confrontation. The pressure to cut Catherine's division had intensified. Market analysts were questioning his judgment, and shareholders were growing restless. When he entered the boardroom, William immediately sensed the shift in atmosphere. Richard Blackwood sat in William's chair at the head of the table. "Ah, William," Blackwood said without standing, "we were just discussing the restructuring proposal." "Restructuring," William repeated, remaining on his feet. Lawrence Preston slid a document across the table. "Given the company's current trajectory, the board feels a more aggressive approach is needed. We're proposing a 60% reduction in the rare disease division, effective immediately." William left the document untouched. "That division is non-negotiable. Perhaps it's time to acknowledge that your personal attachment is clouding your business judgment," Blackwood said, his tone carefully measured. "This company isn't a memorial, William. It's a business." The words hit with precision, exactly as intended. William felt heat rising to his face. "Catherine's division is developing treatments that will help thousands of patients who represent less than 2% of the market," Preston interrupted. "Meanwhile, our competitors are increasing their market share in mainstream medications, while we pour resources into projects with minimal return potential." William looked around the table at the executives he'd worked alongside for years. These were smart, capable people who had helped build Thornton Pharmaceuticals into an industry leader. But somewhere along the way, the company's purpose had narrowed from healing to profit margins. "I founded this company to help people," William said quietly, "not just the ones who represent favorable market demographics." Blackwood sighed theatrically. "No one's questioning your idealism, William, but the board has a fiduciary responsibility. If you can't make the necessary decisions, perhaps it's time to consider a leadership transition." The threat hung in the air, clear and unmistakable. William could fight and potentially lose control of his own company, or he could compromise on Catherine's legacy. "I need time to review these proposals properly," William said finally. "We'll reconvene next week." As he left the boardroom, William felt the weight of corporate expectation pressing down on him. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Ethan asking when you'll be home. Lily taught him to count to 10 in Portuguese today. William found himself smiling despite the pressure. He texted back, "Tell him I'm on my way, and that I want to learn Portuguese too." Driving home, William's mind raced between corporate strategies and the simple joy awaiting him. As the car turned onto Beacon Hill, he made a decision. Tonight was for Ethan. Tomorrow, he would fight for Catherine's vision. At home, he found the children in the library. Lily was reading aloud from an astronomy book, while Ethan listened intently, occasionally asking questions that showed he was absorbing every word. "Dad," Ethan exclaimed when William entered. "Lily says there are stars that explode and make new elements. Is that true?" "Absolutely," William confirmed, loosening his tie. "They're called supernovas. Like when something ends but creates something new and amazing," Lily added thoughtfully. William was struck by the wisdom in her observation. Exactly like that. That evening, William joined them for dinner, something he'd rarely done before Lily entered their lives. The conversation flowed naturally, with Lily recounting her day at school and Ethan sharing facts from his latest reading. "Mr. Thornton," Lily asked suddenly, "why do medicines cost so much money?" William nearly choked on his water. "That's a complicated question, Lily. My mom says some patients at the hospital can't afford their medicine, even though they really need it." Her brow furrowed with genuine concern. "But if someone made the medicine, couldn't they just charge less?" From the mouths of babes, William thought. How to explain pharmaceutical economics to an 8-year-old? "Companies like mine spend billions developing new medicines," he began carefully. "Research is expensive, and many attempts fail before we find something that works." Lily nodded, processing this. "Like when I try to build something and have to start over." "Similar, yes, but on a much larger scale." "But once you figure it out," she persisted, "couldn't you make it cheaper for people who don't have much money? Like when the bakery gives day-old bread for half price?" William glanced at Ethan, who was watching the exchange with interest. "Some companies do have programs to help people who can't afford medications, but it's complicated because of investors and—" "What's an investor?" Ethan interrupted. "People who give companies money to help them grow, expecting to get more money back later," William explained, aware he was oversimplifying. Lily's face brightened. "Oh, like when Grandma lets me help in her garden. I do work now and later we get tomatoes." William couldn't help but laugh. "That's actually a pretty good analogy. But Grandma always gives extra tomatoes to Mrs. Patel next door because she doesn't have a garden," Lily continued. "She says when you have enough, you should share." Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. William felt something shift inside him, a perspective that had been clouded by years of corporate thinking, suddenly clarified by a child's simple wisdom. After dinner, as Lisa helped Ethan prepare for bed, William offered to drive Lily home. "Can I show you something first?" Lily asked, leading him to the craft table in the playroom. She pulled out a colorful drawing of what appeared to be Ethan in his wheelchair, surrounded by stars and planets. "It's for Ethan's birthday. I know it already passed, but I wanted to make him something special." William studied the drawing, touched by the care evident in every crayon stroke. In Lily's artwork, Ethan's wheelchair wasn't just a medical device. It was a magnificent vessel soaring through space, complete with rockets and control panels. "He'll love this, Lily." "It's a comic book," she explained, showing him additional pages, about Commander Ethan exploring the galaxy. "I made his wheelchair the most powerful spaceship ever." On the drive to East Boston, William found himself reflecting on Lily's question about medication costs. Her perspective was simplified, certainly, but not entirely wrong. Somewhere along the way, he had lost sight of the balance between business necessity and human compassion. When they arrived at the apartment building, William walked Lily to the door. Eleanor greeted them, inviting William in for tea. "Not tonight, but thank you," he declined politely. "I wanted to ask, though, would it be all right if Ethan and I visit this weekend? Perhaps Saturday?" Elena's eyes twinkled. "We would be honored. I'll make my special feijoada." It was Roberto's favorite. As William drove back to Beacon Hill, his phone rang. It was Richard Blackwood. "The board has called an emergency session for tomorrow," Blackwood announced without preamble. 9 a.m. sharp. "We're voting on the restructuring proposal." "That's not what we agreed to," William protested. "Circumstances have changed. The Anderson Group has expressed interest in acquiring our consumer health division. It's a substantial offer, but they want assurances about our profitability trajectory. The Anderson Group, a corporate raider known for dismantling companies and selling the pieces. William gripped the steering wheel tighter. This company is not for sale, Richard. That's not your decision alone anymore, William. 9 a.m. Don't be late. The call ended, leaving William in silence. He had less than 12 hours to save Catherine's legacy, and perhaps his own company. At home, he found Ethan still awake, clutching a framed photograph of Catherine. "Hey, buddy, can't sleep?" William sat on the edge of the bed. Ethan shook his head. "I was showing Mom the Space Command Center. Do you think she would like it?" William felt his throat tighten. "She would love it, Ethan. Your mom always believed in exploring new frontiers. Lily says maybe Mom is watching from the stars now." William smiled through the pain. "That's a beautiful thought." "Dad?" Ethan's voice grew quieter. "The kids at school still don't talk to me. Am I always going to just have one friend?" William pulled his son close. "Sometimes one true friend is worth more than 100 acquaintances. But things will get better, I promise." As Ethan finally drifted to sleep, William retreated to his study. On his desk sat piles of financial reports, market analyses, and shareholder communications. He pushed them aside and instead pulled out a dusty photograph album. The images told the story of Thornton Pharmaceuticals' beginnings, William and Catherine in a small lab, their first breakthrough medication, the opening of their first manufacturing facility. In every photo, Catherine's eyes shone with purpose. They had started the company not to become wealthy, but to help people who needed healing. William reached for his laptop and began typing furiously. If tomorrow was to be a battle for the soul of his company, he would not go unprepared. As midnight approached, an idea began to form. Risky, unconventional, but potentially transformative. He worked through the night, fueled by coffee and renewed conviction. When dawn broke over Boston, William Thornton was ready to fight not just for Catherine's division, but for a completely new vision of what Thornton Pharmaceuticals could be. The Thornton Pharmaceuticals boardroom was unusually crowded that morning. In addition to the usual executives, several major shareholders had been invited to witness what Richard Blackwood had billed as a critical strategic realignment. William noted the presence of 2 representatives from the Anderson Group, their predatory intentions barely concealed behind corporate smiles. William arrived precisely at 9, carrying nothing but a slim leather portfolio. Dark circles shadowed his eyes from the sleepless night, but his posture conveyed unwavering resolve. Conversations hushed as he entered. "Ah, William," Blackwood greeted with manufactured warmth. "We were just discussing the excellent opportunity before us. The Anderson Group's offer will not be necessary," William interrupted, taking his rightful place at the head of the table, "because I have a different proposal." Murmurs rippled through the room. William opened his portfolio and distributed slim folders to each board member. "Ladies and gentlemen, I founded Thornton Pharmaceuticals 20 years ago with my wife, Catherine, based on a simple premise: to develop effective medications that improve lives. Somewhere along the way, we've drifted from that mission," Lawrence Preston scoffed. "With all due respect, William, this company has delivered consistent shareholder value for 2 decades. That is our mission." "Is it?" William countered. "Our mission statement, which hangs in the lobby of this very building, states that we aim to advance human health through innovative medicine accessible to all who need it. When was the last time we prioritized accessibility over profit margin?" Blackwood leaned forward. "This sentimentality is precisely why we're concerned about current leadership. The Anderson Group offers a clear path to increased valuation. By gutting research, firing half our scientists, and raising prices," William finished for him, "I'm familiar with their playbook." He gestured to the folders. "What I'm proposing instead is a strategic restructuring of our own, one that realigns us with our founding principles while creating sustainable growth." The room fell silent as the board members reviewed the documents. William's proposal was comprehensive: a new pricing tier system that would maintain premium rates for insurance companies and developed markets while offering significantly reduced prices in underserved communities, a partnership program with community health centers, and most surprisingly, a commitment to allocate 15% of profits to the Rare Disease Research Division. "This is absurd," Preston sputtered. "You're proposing we voluntarily reduce our margins." "I'm proposing we invest in our future," William corrected. "The pharmaceutical industry faces increasing public scrutiny and regulatory pressure over pricing. By getting ahead of that curve, we position ourselves as industry leaders rather than reactive followers. One of the quieter board members, Dr. Helen Chen, spoke up. The community health center partnerships are intriguing. There's significant unmet need there, and establishing loyalty in those settings could yield long-term benefits. Exactly, William agreed. Additionally, I'm proposing we establish the Catherine Thornton Foundation, dedicated to making our most critical medications available to patients who can't afford them, not just as charity, but as investment in goodwill and brand reputation. Pretty words, Blackwood said dismissively, but the numbers don't add up. We'd be sacrificing immediate returns for speculative long-term benefits. William had anticipated this objection. He turned to the final page of the proposal, where detailed financial projections demonstrated a path to sustainable growth that, while slower than the Anderson Group's slash-and-burn approach, ultimately yielded more stable long-term value. The Anderson Group is offering you a sugar rush, William told the shareholders directly, a quick high followed by a crash. I'm offering nutrition. Steady, sustainable growth based on actual innovation rather than financial engineering. The debate continued for hours, growing increasingly heated. William defended each aspect of his proposal with the passion of a man fighting not just for a company, but for a legacy. By noon, the board was deeply divided. We seem to be at an impasse, Blackwood finally declared. Perhaps we should adjourn and... He was interrupted by William's phone ringing. William glanced at the screen, prepared to silence it, but froze when he saw the caller ID, Eleanor Martinez. Excuse me, he said, standing abruptly. I need to take this. In the hallway, William answered with growing concern. Elena, is everything all right? The tremor in her voice sent ice through his veins. Mr. Thornton, I'm at Boston General Hospital. It's my heart. They're saying I need emergency surgery. I'll be right there, William said without hesitation. Which department? Cardiology, 4th floor. But Mr. Thornton, there's a complication. The medication I need, Cardiozem, my insurance won't cover the full treatment course. It's manufactured by Thornton Pharmaceuticals, William finished, the irony not lost on him. Cardiozem was one of their flagship products, priced at a premium that put it out of reach for many patients without gold standard insurance. I'm on my way, Elena, and don't worry about the medication. I'll take care of everything. William returned to the boardroom, his priorities suddenly crystallized with painful clarity. I apologize, but I have a personal emergency. We'll need to continue this discussion tomorrow. Blackwood rose in protest. William, we can't just... Tomorrow, Richard, William said with such finality that even Blackwood fell silent. Within 20 minutes, William was striding through the corridors of Boston General Hospital. He found Elena in a private room, looking smaller and more fragile than he had ever seen her. Lily sat beside the bed, holding her grandmother's hand with unusual stillness. Mr. Thornton, Lily exclaimed, jumping up. You came. Of course I did, William said, moving to Elena's side. How are you feeling? Like an old motor that needs new parts, Elena joked weakly. The doctors say I need a stent and a special medication regimen. The procedure they can manage, but the medication... She trailed off, the worry evident in her eyes. William squeezed her hand. Don't give that another thought. I've already spoken with the hospital pharmacy. Everything you need will be provided. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. Mr. Thornton, I can't accept such charity. It's not charity, Elena. It's what neighbors do for each other. The words felt right as he said them, reminding him of something she had told him about her own community. A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Martinez, we're ready to prep you for the procedure. As they wheeled Elena toward the operating room, Lily clung to William's hand. Is Grandma going to be okay? She whispered. William crouched to her level, seeing not the child who had transformed his son's life, but a frightened little girl facing her own worst fear. Your grandmother is receiving the very best care. The doctors here are excellent. But what if something goes wrong? What if she... Lily couldn't finish the sentence. Hey, William said gently. Remember what you told Ethan about supernovas, how they create something new and amazing. Your grandmother is strong. She'll get through this. As they settled in the waiting room, William made calls, first to Lisa, explaining the situation and asking her to tell Ethan, then to the hospital's pharmacy director, ensuring that Elena would receive not just Cardiozem, but any other medications she might need during recovery. But, sir, the pharmacy director protested, The cost would exceed $20,000. Bill it directly to me, William instructed, and I want this handled discreetly. Mrs. Martinez doesn't need to know the details. The hours crept by. William sat with Lily, who alternated between anxious silence and bursts of questions about heart procedures that revealed how much medical knowledge she had absorbed from her nurse mother. When Michael and Sarah Martinez arrived, rushing directly from their respective workplaces, William was struck by the immediate family resemblance, not just physical features, but the same quiet dignity that characterized Eleanor. "Mr. Thornton," Sarah said, extending her hand, "thank you for staying with Lily. We got here as quickly as we could." "Of course," William replied, impressed by her composure despite the concern etched on her face. "Your mother is in excellent hands." Michael Martinez looked exhausted, still wearing his construction safety vest over a dust-covered shirt. "The medication," he began hesitantly. "They told us the cost has been taken care of," William assured him. "Please don't give it another thought." The Martinez family exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "We can't accept," Michael started. William interrupted gently. "Please, consider it repayment for the gift your daughter has given my family." Before they could protest further, the surgeon appeared, still in scrubs. "The procedure was successful," he announced. "We've placed the stent, and Mrs. Martinez is stable. She'll need to remain hospitalized for observation for a few days, but her prognosis is excellent." The relief in the room was palpable. Lily hugged her parents, then surprised William by throwing her arms around him as well. "Thank you," she whispered. As the Martinez family went to see Eleanor in recovery, William remained in the waiting room, his mind racing between the hospital and the boardroom he had abruptly left. The day's events had crystallized something for him, a clarity of purpose he hadn't felt since Catherine's passing. His phone buzzed with messages from board members demanding updates on the meeting's adjournment. William ignored them all except for a text from Dr. Chen. "Your proposal has merit. Don't give up." A nurse approached, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Thornton, Mrs. Martinez is asking for you." William found Elena awake, but groggy in the recovery room. Her family had stepped out momentarily, giving them privacy. "You saved my life," Elena said simply. "The doctors did that," William corrected. "The medication," she began, "is something you shouldn't worry about." Elena's eyes, though tired, remained sharp. "Before they took me to surgery, I told Lily something. I said, 'Even when sick, smile. Kindness continues to grow even when the gardener leaves.' My Roberto used to say that." William nodded, touched by the wisdom. "Mr. Thornton," Elena continued, her voice strengthening, "Roberto left behind more than just memories. In his office at home there are boxes of his research, studies on making heart medications more affordable without sacrificing efficacy. The big companies weren't interested because it wouldn't maximize profits," William finished, a new idea beginning to form. Eleanor nodded. "Exactly, but maybe in the right hands." A nurse entered to check Elena's vital signs, ending their conversation. As William prepared to leave, promising to bring Ethan to visit soon, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. There was a board meeting to salvage, a company to redirect, and perhaps a legacy to honor that extended beyond his own family. In the hospital corridor, William made a call to his most trusted research scientist. "Jack, I need you to look into something for me. A doctor named Roberto Martinez." Eleanor's recovery progressed steadily over the next week. William arranged for the hospital's best specialist to oversee her care, though he was careful to do so discreetly, respecting the family's pride. Each day after school, he brought Lily and Ethan to visit, watching as the children's presence seemed to accelerate Elena's healing more effectively than any medication. On the 5th day after Elena's surgery, William arrived at the Martinez apartment with a purpose beyond the usual visit. Sarah Martinez answered the door, looking tired but composed after a night shift at the hospital. "Mr. Thornton, come in. Mom's feeling much stronger today." The apartment felt different with Elena's absence, quieter yet still infused with the warmth that characterized the family. Lily was at school and Michael was at work, leaving just Sarah to manage both her mother's recovery preparations and her own professional responsibilities. "I won't stay long," William promised. "I was hoping to look at Dr. Martinez's research materials, if that would be possible." Sarah looked surprised. "My father's research. May I ask why? William chose his words carefully. Your mother mentioned he had developed some innovative approaches to cardiology medications, specifically ways to make them more affordable without compromising efficacy. Given current challenges in my company, I'm re-evaluating our approach to medication accessibility. Sarah studied him for a moment, then nodded. This way. She led him to a small room that clearly served multiple purposes: home office, guest bedroom, and storage space. Neatly labeled boxes lined one wall, each marked with Roberto's precise handwriting. Dad was meticulous, Sarah explained, pulling out several boxes. Everything is organized by research phase and publication status. The unpublished work is in these blue folders. William thanked her, and with her permission, began carefully examining the materials. What he found astounded him. Dr. Roberto Martinez had developed an alternative synthesis method for several cardiology medications, including compounds very similar to Thornton Pharmaceuticals' own CardioZem. His approach reduced production costs by nearly 60% while maintaining therapeutic efficacy. These are brilliant, William murmured, examining a particularly innovative approach. Why weren't these methods adopted? Sarah sighed, sitting down across from him. Dad tried. He submitted to major journals, approached pharmaceutical companies, including yours, actually, though that was probably before your time. They all said the same thing: not commercially viable. What they meant was it wouldn't generate enough profit. When was this work done? William asked, noting dates from the late 1990s. Throughout his career, but his most innovative work was in his last decade. After he retired from clinical practice, he focused entirely on research. Sarah pulled out another folder. This was his magnum opus, a comprehensive approach to making cardiac medications accessible in low-resource settings. He published it in the Brazilian Journal of Cardiology, but it never gained traction in English-language journals. William carefully examined the paper, immediately recognizing its brilliance. The methodology wasn't just clever, it was revolutionary in its approach to balancing cost and efficacy. May I take copies of these? He asked. I'd like my research team to review them. Sarah hesitated. For what purpose exactly? To potentially implement them, William answered honestly. With full credit to your father, of course. Sarah's expression remained guarded. Mr. Thornton, these methods would significantly reduce the profit margin on these medications. Why would your company be interested in that? It was a fair question, one that the old William Thornton would have asked himself. Because I'm beginning to understand that the purpose of medicine isn't just to generate wealth, but to heal people, all people, not just those who can afford premium prices. Sarah studied him, seeming to weigh his sincerity. Mom said you were different from most businessmen she'd met. She said Lily saw it first. Your daughter has a gift for seeing past surfaces, William acknowledged. Sarah nodded slowly. Take what you need. Dad would have wanted his work to help people, regardless of who implemented it. William spent the next 2 hours carefully scanning documents with his phone, occasionally asking Sarah questions about her father's methodology. By the time he finished, he had accumulated a treasure trove of innovative approaches that had been overlooked simply because they prioritized accessibility over profit maximization. Thank you, he said sincerely as he prepared to leave. This could be transformative. Sarah walked him to the door. Mr. Thornton, may I ask you something personal? Of course. What changed? You're a successful businessman who could have continued maximizing profits without a second thought. Why this sudden interest in accessibility? William considered the question. It wasn't sudden. It was Lily, and Ethan, and your mother. He paused, finding the right words. Sometimes we build walls around our hearts not because we're cruel, but because it seems necessary for survival. Those walls can keep out pain, but they also keep out wisdom. Your family helped me remember what matters. Sarah's expression softened. Dad used to say that true healing happens when we recognize each other's humanity. He sounds like a wise man. I wish I could have met him. In a way, you are meeting him, Sarah replied, through his work. Back at Thornton Pharmaceuticals, William called an emergency meeting with his top research scientists. Jack Peterson, the head of research and development, had already begun reviewing Roberto's methodologies. This is remarkable work, Will, Jack said, spreading the documents across the conference table. Martinez was decades ahead of his time in terms of cost-efficient synthesis. We could implement some of these approaches almost immediately. What would be the impact on production costs? William asked. For CardioZem alone, we could reduce costs by at least 40%. The ripple effect across our cardiac line could be even more significant. William nodded, his resolve strengthening. I want a comprehensive implementation plan on my desk by tomorrow morning. And Jack, this stays between us for now. The next day, William walked into the rescheduled board meeting with renewed confidence. Richard Blackwood and the other directors were visibly annoyed by the previous day's abrupt adjournment. I hope whatever emergency pulled you away has been resolved, Blackwood said icily. The Anderson Group representatives are growing impatient. They'll need to be patient a while longer, William replied, taking his seat at the head of the table, because I'm not selling this company. I'm transforming it. Before anyone could object, William launched into a presentation that left the board stunned. He outlined a revolutionary approach to pharmaceutical manufacturing based on Roberto Martinez's methodologies, demonstrating how Thornton Pharmaceuticals could dramatically reduce production costs while maintaining quality. With these innovations, William concluded, we can create a dual pricing structure, maintaining current pricing in traditional markets while offering significantly reduced prices for community health centers and underserved populations. We expand our market reach, enhance our public image, and still maintain healthy, if slightly reduced, profit margins. Lawrence Preston looked skeptical. These methods, they're untested, unproven in large-scale production. Actually, William countered, they've been proven effective in clinical settings across Latin America for over a decade. They've simply been ignored by major pharmaceutical companies because they prioritize accessibility over maximum profit. Dr. Chen, who had been reviewing the technical details with growing excitement, spoke up. The science is sound. This could position us as innovators in cost-efficient production. There's significant first-mover advantage here. The debate continued for hours, with the board deeply divided. The Anderson Group representatives made thinly veiled threats about shareholder activism if their offer wasn't accepted. Finally, William played his trump card. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow morning I'm announcing the formation of the Martinez Foundation, dedicated to making essential medications accessible to all patients. Thornton Pharmaceuticals will be restructured to support this mission. You can either be part of this transformation, or you can sell your shares now. The choice is yours. Richard Blackwood's face flushed with anger. You can't unilaterally make these decisions, William. The board... I still control 51% of voting shares, William interrupted calmly. I'm not asking for permission. I'm offering you the opportunity to be part of something revolutionary. As the meeting adjourned in disarray, Dr. Chen approached William privately. That was quite a performance. For what it's worth, I think you're on the right track, but Richard and his allies won't go down without a fight. I'm counting on it, William replied. Sometimes the worthiest causes require the fiercest battles. Later that evening, William visited Elena at the hospital, bringing Ethan and Lily with him. They found her sitting up in bed, color returning to her cheeks. The doctor says I can go home tomorrow, Elena announced happily, just in time for Lily's science fair. Science fair? William asked, looking at Lily. Lily nodded enthusiastically. I'm doing a project on how the heart works. Mom helped me make a model that actually pumps. Speaking of science, William said casually, I've been looking at your husband's research, Eleanor. It's remarkable work. Eleanor's eyes brightened. Roberto would be so pleased to hear that. He always said his ideas just needed to find the right audience. I think they finally have, William replied. With your family's permission, I'd like to implement some of his approaches at Thornton Pharmaceuticals and establish a foundation in his name. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth in surprise. Lily looked between them, not fully understanding the significance but sensing the emotion in the room. You would do that? Elena asked softly. It would be my honor, William answered. Roberto's work deserves recognition, and more importantly, it deserves to help people. As they discussed the details, Ethan wheeled himself closer to Lily, who was showing him her science fair sketches. The two children had developed a communication style of their own. Ethan's quieter nature, complemented by Lily's exuberance, creating a balance that brought out the best in both. Dad, Ethan said suddenly, interrupting the adults' conversation. "Can we have a sleepover? Lily's never had one, and I want to show her how the stars look from my telescope." William glanced at Elena, who smiled her approval. "Of course, buddy. As long as it's okay with Mrs. Martinez." As they prepared to leave, Elena asked for a moment alone with William. When the children had gone to the hallway with a nurse, she took his hand. "William," she said, using his first name for the first time, "what you're doing with Roberto's work, it would mean everything to him. But I have to ask, why? This will surely reduce your company's profits." William thought about the board meeting, about Richard Blackwood's fury, about the uncertain battle ahead. Then he thought about Ethan's laughter, Lily's wisdom, and the Martinez family's quiet dignity. "Because some things matter more than money," he said simply. Catherine understood that. "I'd forgotten it until Lily reminded me." Eleanor squeezed his hand. "Roberto used to say that true wealth is measured by the lives you touch, not the money you accumulate." He was right, William agreed, "and I'm just beginning to understand how rich I can be." As William walked down the hospital corridor with Ethan and Lily, chattering excitedly about their sleepover plans, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from his assistant. Richard called emergency shareholder meeting for Friday. Proxy fight imminent. The battle for Thornton Pharmaceuticals and for Roberto Martinez's legacy was just beginning. The morning of the emergency shareholder meeting dawned clear and crisp. William stood at his bedroom window, watching the first rays of sunlight illuminate the Boston skyline. Today would determine not just the future of Thornton Pharmaceuticals, but the legacy of two families united by unexpected circumstances. "Dad? Are you nervous about your big meeting?" Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in his space-themed pajamas, his wheelchair adorned with the control panels he and Lily had crafted. William smiled, marveling at how his son's perceptiveness had sharpened in recent weeks. "A little. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't easy." Ethan wheeled himself closer. "Lily says her grandpa always told her that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right even when you're scared." "Dr. Martinez was a wise man," William said, crouching to his son's level, "and Lily is lucky to have his wisdom." "We're both lucky," Ethan replied with unexpected maturity. "Before Lily came, everything was dark. Now it's not." William pulled his son into a gentle embrace, feeling the small shoulders that carried such profound understanding. "You're right, buddy, now it's not." At Thornton Pharmaceuticals headquarters, the largest conference room was filled beyond capacity. Major shareholders had flown in from across the country, and the tension was palpable. Richard Blackwood had spent the past 48 hours rallying support, portraying William's new vision as dangerous idealism that would destroy shareholder value. William entered the room flanked by Dr. Chen and Jack Peterson. A hush fell over the assembled investors and board members as he took his position at the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today," William began, his voice steady despite the stakes. "I know many of you are concerned about the direction I'm proposing for Thornton Pharmaceuticals. You've heard terms like reduced profitability and risky restructuring. What you haven't heard is the full story." William clicked to the first slide of his presentation, a photograph of Dr. Roberto Martinez in his clinic, surrounded by children whose lives he had saved. "This is Dr. Roberto Martinez. 20 years ago, he developed methodologies that could have transformed cardiac medication accessibility worldwide. His work was rejected, including by this company, not because it lacked merit, but because it prioritized patient access over maximum profit margins." Richard Blackwood stood. "William, this emotional appeal has no place in a business discussion. The shareholders are here to discuss concrete financials, not sentimental." "Actually," William interrupted, "they're here to evaluate a business proposal. I suggest you let me present it before dismissing it." The next hour was the most important presentation of William's career. With methodical precision, he outlined the Martinez methodology and its potential impact on Thornton Pharmaceuticals' production costs. Jack Peterson provided scientific validation, while Dr. Chen presented a comprehensive financial analysis, showing how reduced production costs could enable a dual pricing strategy, maintaining premium pricing in traditional markets while offering significantly reduced prices in underserved communities. The net result, William concluded, is a projected 15% reduction in overall profit margin, but a 40% expansion in market reach. More importantly, We position Thornton Pharmaceuticals as an industry leader in ethical pharmaceutical practices, ahead of the regulatory changes that are inevitably coming. Richard Blackwood wasted no time in mounting his counterattack. "This is irresponsible idealism," he declared. "The pharmaceutical industry operates on established business models for good reason." William's personal relationship with the Martinez family has clearly clouded his judgment. The debate grew heated, with shareholders divided. The Anderson Group representatives made their position clear. If William's plan was adopted, they would withdraw their acquisition offer immediately. Just as the discussion reached its most contentious point, the conference room doors opened. A hush fell over the room as Elena Martinez entered, supported by Sarah on one side and Michael on the other. Lily followed, carrying a cardboard display board. To everyone's surprise, Ethan wheeled in beside her, accompanied by Lisa. "Excuse the interruption," Elena said with quiet dignity, "but I believe we have something relevant to contribute to this discussion." William moved to greet them, genuinely surprised. "Elena, you should be resting." "Some things are worth getting out of bed for," she replied with a smile. "May we present something to your shareholders?" Richard Blackwood began to object, but several curious shareholders voiced their interest. William nodded his approval, yielding the floor. Lily stepped forward with her science fair project, a comprehensive analysis of cardiac medication accessibility in low-income communities, illustrated with statistics, graphs, and personal stories from patients at the community health center where her mother worked. "My grandpa believed that medicine should help everyone, not just people with lots of money," Lily explained with disarming directness. "He found a way to make heart medicine that costs less but works just as good." Sarah followed with a more technical presentation, drawing on her nursing experience to outline the real-world impact of medication inaccessibility. "Each year we see hundreds of patients who ration their medications due to cost, resulting in preventable complications and hospitalizations. The human cost is immeasurable, but the economic cost to our healthcare system exceeds $300 billion annually." The room had fallen completely silent. Even Richard Blackwood seemed momentarily at a loss for words. Elena then spoke, her voice soft but commanding. "My husband dedicated his life to healing others. He understood something that is easy to forget in boardrooms like this. Medicine is a sacred trust. Its purpose is to alleviate suffering, not to maximize wealth. There is room for both fair profit and ethical practice." She turned to William. "Mr. Thornton understands this now. The question is whether you, as stewards of this company, will choose to understand it too." As Elena finished speaking, Ethan wheeled himself forward. "My mom used to say that being successful means helping others succeed too." His voice was quiet, but clear in the hushed room. "I think that's what my dad is trying to do." William felt a surge of pride and gratitude, unlike anything he'd experienced in his corporate career. The Martinez family had laid bare the fundamental question at the heart of the pharmaceutical industry. Was it primarily a healing profession that generated profit, or a profit-generating business that happened to involve healing? As the Martinez family took seats at the back of the room, the shareholders' discussion resumed with a markedly different tone. Financial concerns remained, but the human element could no longer be dismissed. Several major institutional investors, who had previously sided with Blackwood, began asking more nuanced questions about the implementation timeline and market positioning of William's proposed restructuring. The turning point came when Evelyn Richards, representing one of the largest pension fund investors, spoke up. "I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I've seen companies rise and fall. The ones that thrive long-term are those that adapt to changing social expectations before they're forced to by regulation. What Mr. Thornton is proposing isn't just ethically sound, it's strategically prescient." The vote, when it finally came, was narrow but decisive. 54% in favor of William's restructuring plan, with a mandate to implement the Martinez methodologies across Thornton Pharmaceuticals' cardiac medication line. Richard Blackwood and his closest allies resigned from the board on the spot. The Anderson Group representatives departed without a word. As the room cleared, William found himself surrounded by the unlikely family that had changed everything: Eleanor, Sarah, Michael, Lily, and Ethan. "We did it," he said simply. "You did it," Elena corrected. Roberto would be so proud to see his work finally recognized. "This is just the beginning," William promised. "The Martinez Foundation will ensure that his legacy continues to grow." 6 months later, the transformation of Thornton Pharmaceuticals was well underway. Production costs for their cardiac medication line had decreased by 37% using Roberto's methodologies, enabling them to launch a community access program that provided medications at significantly reduced prices to clinics serving underserved populations. Wall Street had initially punished the company's stock, but as the program gained national attention and patient advocacy groups rallied behind the initiative, the share price had not only recovered, but strengthened. Other pharmaceutical companies were beginning to face uncomfortable questions about why they couldn't implement similar access programs. On a perfect autumn afternoon, William stood in the newly dedicated Roberto Martinez Research Center at Thornton Pharmaceuticals headquarters. The state-of-the-art facility would focus exclusively on developing affordable medication protocols for global access. Sarah Martinez had accepted the position of Director of Community Implementation, bringing her clinical expertise to the Foundation's work. But the most profound transformation had occurred not in the corporate world, but in William's home. The once silent mansion now regularly echoed with the laughter of children. Ethan's command center wheelchair had evolved into an elaborate creation with actual electronic components, courtesy of a young engineer from the research division who volunteered his time. Ethan himself had blossomed. Though still in his wheelchair, he no longer defined himself by his limitations. He had returned to school with a new confidence, and while not all his classmates had overcome their discomfort, a few had begun to see beyond the wheelchair to the boy himself. As for Lily, she had become a fixture in the Thornton household, dividing her time between her family's apartment and Ethan's mansion, with the ease of someone who belonged in both worlds. Her science fair project had won first place at the regional competition and had been featured in local news coverage of Thornton Pharmaceuticals' Access Initiative. Elena had fully recovered from her heart procedure and now served as an honorary advisor to the Martinez Foundation, bringing her wisdom and perspective to the organization's governance. Michael continued his construction work, but with William's quiet assistance, had enrolled in engineering classes at night, pursuing a dream long deferred by financial necessity. On this particular afternoon, William watched as Ethan and Lily conducted a mission briefing for a group of children from Ethan's school, the first playdate he had hosted in years. The children, initially awkward around Ethan's wheelchair, had been quickly drawn into Lily's imaginative world, where the chair was the most coveted position, the commander's seat of their intergalactic vessel. "Quite a change from last year's birthday party," Eleanor observed, joining William on the patio. "In every possible way," William agreed. "I didn't understand then what makes a house a home," Eleanor smiled. "And now? Now I understand that wealth isn't about what you have, but what you share." William watched as Lily helped another child take a turn, sitting in Ethan's spare wheelchair, showing them how to navigate the ramp they had built together. "Your family taught us that. And your family taught us something too," Elena replied, "that sometimes barriers exist only until someone is brave enough to cross them." From across the garden, Ethan called out, "Dad, we need another adult for the Space Council. It's an emergency mission," William laughed. "Duty calls." As he joined the children's game, taking his assigned role with mock seriousness, William reflected on the journey that had brought them here. An empty birthday party, a girl with bread, a wheelchair reimagined as a spaceship, small moments that had collectively altered the course of many lives. Later that evening, after the other children had gone home and Lily had returned to her apartment with Elena, William sat with Ethan in their library. The boy was tired but happy, his eyes bright with the satisfaction of a day well spent. "Dad," Ethan said as William helped him into bed, "I think Mom would be happy with how things are now." William felt his throat tighten. "I think so too, buddy." "Lily says that sometimes the best families are the ones we make ourselves," Ethan continued thoughtfully. "Like how her grandma isn't actually related to her grandpa by blood, but they're still family." "Lily's very wise for her age," William observed. "She says she gets it from her grandpa." Ethan yawned. "Just like I get stuff from Mum, even though she's not here anymore." William tucked the blankets around his son, marveling at the resilience of children, their capacity to absorb loss and still find joy, to accept what cannot be changed, and build something new from the remains. Love doesn't disappear, William said softly. It just transforms like those supernovas Lily told you about. Ethan nodded sleepily, creating something new and amazing. As his son drifted off to sleep, William stood at the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. In his hand, he held Catherine's wedding ring, which he now wore on a chain around his neck. "You would love them," he whispered to the night sky. "The Martinez family, especially Lily. She has your spirit, seeing the best in people, finding hope in unlikely places." The next morning, William would return to Thornton Pharmaceuticals to continue the work of transformation, building a company that honored both profitability and purpose. There would be challenges ahead, resistance to overcome, skeptics to convince. But for the first time since losing Catherine, the path forward was illuminated not just by obligation, but by genuine purpose. The Martinez Foundation would ensure that Roberto's methodologies reached beyond Thornton Pharmaceuticals, influencing the broader industry. Elena's wisdom would guide their community engagement, Sarah's clinical expertise would inform their implementation strategies, and Lily, bright, boundless Lily, would continue to remind them all why this work mattered. As for Ethan, he was no longer defined by what he had lost, but by what he had found. A friend who saw him completely, a father who was truly present, and a sense of possibility that extended far beyond the confines of his wheelchair. The mansion on Beacon Hill was no longer a shrine to what had been lost, but a laboratory for what could still be created. The walls that had once echoed with silence now resonated with purpose, a fitting tribute to two families united by chance, transformed by compassion, and now bound together by a shared vision of healing that extended far beyond medicine. In the garden where an empty birthday party had once stood as testament to isolation, a new tradition had taken root, weekly gatherings that brought together people from across Boston's diverse communities. The golden balloons had been replaced by colorful lanterns crafted by children from Lily's school. The perfect symmetry had yielded to creative chaos, and at the center of it all, a wheelchair-accessible treehouse stood as monument to the understanding that true accessibility wasn't just about physical ramps, but about opening hearts and minds to possibilities previously unimagined. William Thornton, once defined by corporate success, had discovered a more profound measure of achievement, the ability to create spaces where everyone belonged, medicines everyone could access, and a future where no child sat alone on their birthday, waiting for friends who never came. And it had all begun with a girl carrying bakery bread, who had looked at golden balloons floating above imposing walls, and thought not, "That's not for someone like me," but rather, "I wonder who might need a friend today." Sometimes, William reflected, as he finally turned away from the window, the most powerful healing comes not from the medications we develop, but from the connections we forge, across differences, beyond barriers, and with the simple courage to knock on an unfamiliar door and say, "May I join you?"